Hey everyone, Jay Ferguson here. Thanks very much for tuning into this little YouTube channel that I've made. And of course, thanks to everyone so far who has either commented, followed along, or liked the videos so far. For this video, since I was going to be uploading it around the time of International Women's Day, I thought it would be interesting to make a video on some rare or unusual records made by women, and that could be either, singer, songwriter, producer, arranger, I didn't really want to focus on, ones that were more well-known. Joni Mitchell, Carole King, Joan Jett, Diana Ross, Solange, Wise Blood, Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders. I kind of wanted to focus on records that were maybe a little more off the beaten path, or records that are made by some female artists who are well known, but maybe the record is a little bit unusual. And I hope I've done that. So I thought I would, cull a bunch of records that sort of fit into that category from my collection to show to you today. So let's start off with a record by a Canadian. Thought it'd be very appropriate. Her name, this record is from 1969, and the woman's name is Elyse. And this was kind of her only record made during her heyday, I guess you could say, the late 60s. There's the front cover. This is the Canadian version that was released on Polydor. There's the sort of homemade back cover. Very eccentric singer-songwriter, as I said, from Chatham, Ontario, here in Canada. In the late 60s or mid-60s, she sort of went to Montreal, I believe, to go to school, and then made her way back to Toronto in the late 60s, where she was sort of hanging around in Yorkville, which was the sort of area of town that nurtured the likes of Joni Mitchell, Gordon Lightfoot, Neil Young. And when a lot of them sort of ended up, making their way to California, she followed suit. And but unlike those artists who had long and storied careers with many, many records, she kind of only made this one record. And it's a wonderful record, a very unusual, eccentric singer-songwriter music with interesting lyrics and odd time changes and everything like that. It's a little, maybe a little less commercial than Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. Not that Joni didn't make sort of challenging music in her time, but for its time, it was a little bit unusual. Now, so she moved to LA, made this record. She made one more record on the American label. What's it called? Tetragrammaton, which was the label it was released on in the United States. But as I said, the Canadian version came out up here on Polydor. And also the Canadian version came with this yellow cover, and the American version is all white. Anyhow, she made this record, which I don't think set the charts alight, as it were. And she made one more record, and then the label went bankrupt or went underground. So that record, the second record, kind of remained unreleased until well into the 2000s, when it was she started getting notice and was being championed by more indie and underground artists, and the record was rediscovered and reissued finally after decades of just lying in the vaults. So that's very exciting. I found this record at a local record fair here. That's usually put on by a couple of fine gentlemen, Aaron and Akeem. And it's nice that I found a copy while it's open, but still in the shrink wrap, and it's in lovely condition. And it's a record I've always known for a long time, but never really found a really nice copy. So I guess I found this maybe about a year ago, and I was very happy to finally find a lovely copy. So there it is. Check it out. A friend of mine also, who's a fan of this record, kind of thought she was sort of a parallel a little bit to Syd Barrett. Syd Barrett being a very unusual singer-songwriter, to put it mildly. And, her songs, like I said, odd time changes, interesting lyrics, almost sort of fits into that category. Let me know in the comments if you think that's a fair parallel. But if you see this record out in the wild, it's highly recommended. So that's the cover, and I should show the label as well. The Canadian Polydor label. If you can see it in the glare there a little bit. Anyhow, wonderful and unusual record. The next record I want to highlight is also by an unusual artist and an American artist, and her name is Betty Davis. Betty Davis also was the former wife of Miles Davis. Originally, her name was Betty Mabry, and I believe she is also the cover subject of a couple of Miles Davis records. But I don't know if she was still married to Miles when she made these records, but her solo records are fantastic, and also someone whose music sort of gained, a little more light was shed on it. In the 2000s with some reissues. This record is called They Say I'm Different. There's the front cover. There's the back cover. Lovely photo of Betty Davis. And the also comes in this sort of unipack gatefold. Not much information there, but great photo of her right there. And she wrote all the songs and produced this record. Sort of not necessarily, I mean, you could call it R&B, but definitely more of like a funk rock kind of record in the sort of in the realm of maybe the early 70s funkadelic records, less so, not really like Parliament, but more like the the R&B side, but more like the funk rock, I guess you could say, hybrid of funkadelic. And I found this record in Halifax growing up in the 1980s at a flea market for $1. I saw it. I did not know anything about it. I did not know her name, but it just looked so cool. And it was $1, so I had to pick it up, and I've always loved it ever since. Anyhow, Betty Davis, wonderful record. I should show you the label as well. It was not, like I said, not a record that was heralded much in its time, but it's nice that she got some notice, or the music got notice later on. And it was on Just Sunshine Records, and there's the label itself. I mean, I don't know if the label was quite a small label, so I don't know if she would have benefited from a lot of promotion to, help her records break through, but they could have been, commercial smashes probably on a label that maybe had a little more push or money. Anyhow, wonderful record by Betty Davis. Happy to find that a long time ago in Halifax. The next record is a record I found locally a few years ago, probably before the pandemic, at actually this store, Short Stack Records here in Toronto. The late lamented Short Stack, no longer open. It was a great record store here in my neighborhood. And I saw this record on the wall there, and I had never seen it before. And I remember seeing it thinking, like, oh, that looks interesting. And I looked at it, and I went home and listened to a little bit of it online, and went back about a half an hour later and bought it because I just thought it was great. It's a record by Laurie Burton. And once again, this is her only LP. It came out in 1967. And the front cover there, and the back cover illustrating some charts. And I suppose almost like reflecting or illuminating the fact that she was a songwriter before she made this record. She studied, she went to music school. She was very adept at songwriting and arranging, and wrote hits for people like Lulu, Patti LaBelle, and the Young Rascals. And then she made some demos of her own and was finally convinced to make a record on her own. So if you like, that kind of Phil Spector / brill building, kitchen sink, soul pop, then I think you might enjoy this. In fact, if you like something like Ike and Tina Turner's River Deep Mountain High, that kind of over-the-top production, then I think you would probably enjoy this record. Great songs, super catchy, great singer. And, she made this record, and then she kind of ducked out of the music business not long after this. I think she made some appearances on other people's records. She sings on Number 9 Dream by John Lennon, the background vocals. She made a couple other really small appearances throughout the 70s, but then that was it. She passed away either just before the pandemic or during the pandemic, not long after I would have discovered this record. But if you like that kind of over-the-top, New York, bill building, soul, pop, Phil Spector, etc., then I think you would enjoy this record. Really happy to find one that's in beautiful shape at old Short Stack. And here's the label as well. Kind of looks like that, just the typical red Mercury label. So if you like that kind of stuff and you find this out in the wild, I would recommend it. Or you can probably find a good copy online. But Laurie Burton and Breakout. The next record, we're going to go back to Canada. And I think there's probably a lot of people who would know this channel or who are in the vinyl community on YouTube would be familiar with the record "Passing Fancy," which was a sort of a soft pop psych record that came out in the late '60s on Columbia, band from Canada. This record is by an artist who was kind of in that realm, in that some of the people associated with Passing Fancy wrote some songs on this record and also lent their hands to playing the instruments on it. It's by an artist named Suzanne. There you go. Now, there's a number of covers on this record. It's, sorry, I'll show the front cover. There you go, lovely graphic. Suzanne on the Birchmount label here in Canada, and there's a photo over there in a lovely trench coat. Hello, Suzanne. And a lot of the songs on this record, there's a number of covers, sort of very current covers of the day, people who would do, Backrack and David songs like This Girl's in Love, Do You Know the Way to San Jose? But nestled in amongst these are originals that are written by some of the people in the Passing Fancy sphere, notably Fergus Hambleton and Greg Hambleton. And those are the songs that I find the most interesting on this record, especially the song Island, I quite like, and Weather, and Without You by Fergus Hambleton. So if you're a fan of that kind of Canadian pop psych sound of a Passing Fancy, you might enjoy this record. And also, if you like, I guess another comparison would be almost like early Bell and Sebastian as well, that kind of light touch of those songs by Isabel Campbell, perhaps, when she was in that band. So if you like that kind of stuff, I think you would enjoy this record and be worth seeking out. I see it from time to time here in Canada because it's a Canadian record. And this one I discovered at a shop, I think Dr. Disc down in Hamilton, here in Ontario. But I do see it out in the wild every once in a while, and you can find it online. But very cool, light, soft pop. And if you like that sound, I think you would enjoy it. Here's the green Birchmount label that it's on. If you can see it in the glare there. Anyhow. So this next record is by an artist who was famous in the 1960s, and then she ended up recording a song made famous by another band in the 1980s, and that band from the 1980s ended up playing on this record. In fact, it was all their scheme to get her to record it. But anyhow, I just wanted to highlight this fantastic 12-inch single by Sandie Shaw, popular 60s UK chanteuse, and her version of the Smiths' Hand in Glove, the front cover there. I believe that's Rita Tushingham from the movie A Taste of Honey. The cover designed by Morrissey, made to look like a Smith sleeve. But I believe Morrissey and Johnny Marr were big fans of Sandie Shaw, and they kind of dug her a little bit out of retirement to record, the Smiths' famous debut single, Hand in Glove, along with two other songs, I Don't Owe You Anything, another great Smith song, and Jean, which was the B-side to the Smiths' single, This Charming Man. Fantastic early Smith song. But anyhow, the rest of the Smiths, Mike Joyce, Andy Rourke, and Johnny Marr, are actually backing up Sandie Shaw on this. And I must say, the arrangement of Hand in Glove on this, I think maybe even tops the Smiths version of Hand in Glove. Fantastic version, and it became a minor hit in England, and they ended up performing it along with Sandie Shaw on a number of TV shows. So if you go on YouTube and you Google Sandie Shaw Hand in Glove, there are a lot of great performances of the Smiths and Johnny Marr looking like he's having the time of his life playing with Sandie Shaw. Wonderful record, one of the greatest singles of the 1980s by the Smiths or by Sandie Shaw. Fantastic version, and I'll show the label because, as I know, some people like to see the labels and the lovely minimalist rough trade design. There it is, Sandie Shaw Hand in Glove. The next record I wanted to highlight is an American artist who had a big hit in the early 60s and then kind of had a bit of a lull and then moved to England to sing on other people's records and ended up getting signed by Apple Records. And her name is Doris Troy. This is her first and I believe only record that she recorded for Apple Records, co-produced with George Harrison, and a lot of the Plastic Ono band play on this record, Ringo and Klaus Voormann. And I love the late 60s British copies of Apple Records releases. Of course, the Beatles solo efforts as well as Beatles records, but also all the artists that were signed to that label, whether it was James Taylor, Jackie Lomax, Badfinger, of course, and Mary Hopkins. And this record here, Doris Troy, when I saw it, I didn't really know it beyond the single Ain't That Cute, but I thought I'd give it a try. It's very much R&B infused rock, to be quite honest. And it's a little overproduced here and there, but there's some great songs on it. And she's a wonderful singer, so it's a great listen. So this was kind of a cool find. There's the front cover in that beautiful glossy British look. And yeah, thank you all. Love Doris. There you go. Anyhow, cool record to have in my collection. And also here's the of course the typical UK Apple label right there for those folks who like to see the labels. And next record is another record I found at a local record show here in Toronto, and some of these records have been reissued over time, and but it's really cool finding original copies or semi-original copies, or I guess I would say this is sort of an original copy. It's by the French artist whose name is Brigitte Fontaine, and this is, I believe, her third or fourth record, I forget. It's from 1974, and it's a self-titled record, and I think this is the second Japanese pressing from that very same year. I think there might be a slight difference on the label, and I think the insert is a slightly different cover. Anyhow, this is the front cover with the Japanese obi strip and lovely photo of Brigitte right there. Brigitte Fontaine, very, you could say she's a singer-songwriter, but also an avant-garde artist. And, this record contains, acoustic songs, more orchestrated songs with some very, unusual instruments. There's a cappella songs, spoken word. It's a very unusual combination of sounds and songs on this record. But these are the kind of records that, you might not put on at a party, or, hey, I'm going for a long drive, I'm going to listen to this Brigitte Fontaine record. But it's the kind of record for me as a songwriter that you hear little bits and pieces and they're like, oh, that's such a cool idea. I'm going to sneak or steal that idea and turn it into another song or apply it to a song I already have. And there's so many cool songs on here, and also just cool ideas for making songs. So that's kind of why I love these more eclectic and eccentric records, because there's just so many, great ideas in there that may not be commercial, but just cool little, tiny ideas that you could steal, or that, spark another idea that you might not have thought of. So that's why I really appreciate these wonderful records. And her other records are great as well. I don't have any of them because you can find some reissues, but I love finding the original copies of a lot of these records, but I just don't see them that frequently. But when I came across this Japanese, like I said, second pressing from the first year, it was released 1974, I couldn't resist. But anyhow, like I said, that's the front cover. Oh, and I should show, Japanese records always have cool inserts and stuff, so has a booklet with a bit of sheet music as well from the song Brigitte, which is one of my favorites on the record, just her and a guitar. The lyrics in French and Japanese, some more cool photos, if you can see right there, and what else? Song titles and some credits. So great record by Brigitte Fontaine, and I'll also highlight the label here for you. The Sarava label, Sarava, am I pronouncing that right? Edition Sarava. Anyhow, there you go. Brigitte Fontaine, self-titled record, wonderful stuff. Now, the final, I'm going to show some 45s too at the very end, but the final full-length LP that I'm going to show is maybe my favorite record that she made, my favorite of her 60s records, and that's by none other wonderful artist Marianne Faithfull. Rest in peace. Very sorry to hear that she passed away very, very recently. And this is, I believe, her third solo record that came out in the 60s on the Decca label, North Country Maid. Front cover. And there's the back cover, kind of describing all the songs. I feel like this is maybe her most pure folk record that she made. It's not very leaning in a pop angle or a pop category, but a lot of it is just her and an acoustic guitar performing maybe, some traditional songs or popular songs. Green Are Your Eyes by Bert Jansch. We had this discussion before in another episode, if anybody remembers. Jansch or Jansch, it depends on whether you're Scottish or English, I believe. She does Scarborough Fair. Also, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, popularized by also the late Roberta Flack, written by Ewan McCall, and also the title track North Country Maid. But also lots of other wonderful folk songs, Cockle Shells, Sunny Good Street, which was a song that I think Donovan wrote for her specifically for this record. But it's wonderful just hearing her vocal and an acoustic guitar. And it's not very common. I don't see this out in the wild very often. And once again, I found this here at a record show in Toronto. And I was very glad to be able to find this. So that's the front and back cover. And if you can see through the paper there, that's the original mono Decca label. And wonderful. I love British pressings, and very happy to have this in my collection by the wonderful late Marianne Faithfull. Okay, to round out this episode, I'm going to share some 7-inch singles released by female artists that are maybe a little bit more unusual or off the beaten path. A little bit. Nothing too crazy. I don't know what I'm saying. But the first one I'm going to show you is the first release by a band that became very, very popular in the 1980s. And that artist is, of course, the Bangles. This is their very first 7-inch single called Getting Out of Hand. That's the front cover. Very small photo of them on the B-side there. The B-side being Call on Me, produced by the Bangles and engineered by Ethan James at Radio Tokyo. That was very much a hot spot for LA underground music in the early 1980s. Now, this is the second pressing of the Bangles' first single. It was originally released, you can even see on the cover there, formerly The Bangs. I guess they're letting their fans know that, hey, we were the Bangs, but now we're called the Bangles because there was another band called the Bangs that they discovered, and maybe they were threatening with a lawsuit, perhaps. Anyhow, fantastic single. Now, the first time I saw the Bangles was around 1983. They performed on American Bandstand before they had been signed to a major label. They had this single out and also a 12-inch EP. And I think they were promoting that 12-inch EP, and it was remarkable that, Dick Clark and American Bandstand would have, a band on that was not on a major label. And there's actually, American Bandstand had some pretty cool artists throughout the, late 70s into the early 80s. They would highlight a lot of unusual stuff. The famous Public Image clip you may want to check out on YouTube, but also would have, Sparks on there, Rockpile, Nick Lowe, and Prince, early Prince on there. So it was a pretty cool show showing off, maybe artists that maybe were not on a lot of, I guess there were other shows like Fridays and Saturday Night Live that had unusual artists, but it was kind of cool that American Bandstand had stuff like that. And they had the Bangles on. I remember seeing them and thinking they were fantastic. And I went down to, I guess, Boston with my mom and some relatives, and I think it would have been that year, 1983, and I remember finding that EP by the Bangles and finding this 7-inch single, so I couldn't resist buying it back then. Anyhow, like I said, second pressing, but fantastic track, and there's the label right there. Getting Out of Hand right there, and Call on Me on the Down Kitty records. And as I said, this was released in 1981. Very sort of early Mersey beat kind of sound, as you would guess from the Bangles. Not too maybe like a more rougher version of the sound that they displayed on their first record. So anyhow, I was very happy to find that back in 1983. The next artist I wanted to highlight from my collection is a band from the early 1990s in England, who are kind of counterparts to another movement that was happening in America at the same time. The whole sort of Riot Girl indie movement spearheaded by bands in America like Bikini Kill, Calamity Jane, and Bratmobile, for example. Their parallel in the UK, I would say the best of those bands was a band called Huggy Bear. And here is, there you go. Here is their third 7-inch single called Her Jazz, an amazing, supremely confrontational and rocking 7-inch single. There's the back cover, very cool sort of do-it-yourself cut and paste style artwork. And I'll show the rest of it here. There's the label, once again, very cut and paste, do-it-yourself. And the lyrics are even highlighted in sort of the cut and paste ransom note style look right there. Fantastic look. And there's even an insert in here, which is sort of highlighting Courtney Love and a note about her, and a little bit sort of the state of indie rock and their issues with it in UK in the early 1990s. But amazing single. I kind of prefer, nothing against, like I said, Bikini Kill, who were exceptionally rocking and made some very important records in that era, but I kind of prefer the sound of Huggy Bear. Her Jazz is a super exciting recording, but also their other 7 inches sort of displayed a little more experimental, quieter side as well, and some spoken word, but also some awesome, like I said, rocking songs. So this is a fantastic one. I really recommend Huggy Bear if you don't know their music, and the 7-inch singles are great. They also did a split LP with Bikini Kill that probably came out around 93 or so as well, maybe 92, I forget. But this 7-inch is from 93 and one of my favorites. This is an Apple single by the one and only Ronnie Spector, and maybe my favorite single ever released outside the Beatles on Apple Records. And it's, I guess the A-side is Try Some, Buy Some, written by George Harrison. But I love Tandoori Chicken. And anytime I ever get the opportunity to DJ, which is few and far between, I don't really do it that frequently, but I always play Tandoori Chicken by Ronnie Spector. So I kind of wanted to highlight that 7-inch produced by George Harrison and Phil Spector. But fantastic, lovely photo of Ronnie Spector, and the single on the typical Apple label. And like I said, it's the B-side right there, Tandoori Chicken, that I love the most. Anyhow, I just wanted to highlight that fantastic single. And she didn't make a full record. I think she was going to make a full album for Apple Records, but she ended up not doing it. And that's the only record she released on Apple Records. Sadly, I would have loved to have heard by the sound of both sides on that, it would have, she would have made a fantastic record for Apple. And that almost ties in Ronnie Spector, of course, being part of the Ronettes back in the early 1960s. And while they were not on Motown, here's another all-girl group from the early 60s that I love, and maybe one of the most unheralded bands or artists on Motown. And I want to take this out because I have a couple things to show in here that are kind of cool. Anyhow, this is by the Marvelettes, and this is a little jukebox EP. These were EPs that had a few songs on them, and were probably not sold in stores, but were distributed to go into jukeboxes. So they had a few songs on them, as opposed to just the A side and the B side of a single. This one has let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. This has 6 tracks on it. So, you could almost have like a mini LP in a jukebox. They often just had a blank back. But this has some of my favorite Marvelettes tracks on it. And I would have found this probably a long time ago, during the 80s, I think, when I was working at Old Dan's Records back in Halifax. And it's got He Was Really Saying Something, later made popular by Bananarama in the 1980s. But it has a song written by Smokey Robinson for them called The Hunter Gets Captured by the Game. And it's one of my favorite Motown songs. Check it out if you don't know it. And I love the look of this EP. They actually had a full-length LP with these songs on it with the same graphic. But I just love, once again, the compactness of this. And also, they would come with these little jukebox kind of like tabs, I guess, or cards that you would rip these off and you would put it in the jukebox so you could see what selection you could make. So it's kind of cool that it has the unperforated sheet of the tracks on that. And here is the center label. It's on the I guess Motown, but it's on the Tamla, yellow Tamla label. And this is a wonderful EP. And there's a song that I wrote for a Sloan record called Commonwealth that's called Three Sisters that even kind of nicks a little bit of the lyric from The Hunter Gets Captured by the Game. And you can find it on that song. So I've always loved that song. Excuse me. I even stole a couple of the words to use on that track on our Sloan record Commonwealth. Anyhow, I love those jukebox EPs. I have a few of them, but I thought it was kind of fun to highlight that one by the Marvelettes. The last record I wanted to highlight is by an artist who I've known for, I guess, the better part of probably 33 years or so, and thought I would end it on a Canadian note. Started with Canadian, we're going to end on a Canadian note. And it's an artist by the name of Broken Girl. Broken Girl, aka Julie Doiron, from the fantastic band from our era out in Eastern Canada, Eric's Trip. And this was her debut solo record from 1993, I believe, released on there's the back. It's sort of an EP. It's got Beautiful, Laugh With Me, Sad Song, and Five. All the songs were recorded and produced by Rick White, and me in June and September 1993 at Stereo Mountain, which would have been Rick White's recording studio in Moncton, New Brunswick. And once again, very photocopied, cut and paste sleeve, and sort of do-it-yourself style labels, as you can see right there. Whoops, upside down, sort of. Anyhow, Julie Doiron, a very prolific artist over the years, of course, with her records with Eric's Trip, and making records under the name Broken Girl, but also under her own name, Julie Doiron, with different incarnations of different bands. And I just want to highlight that Julie Doiron, after making records for, like I said, for the better part of 33 years, is on almost like a commercial high these days. Her song, I believe it's called August 10th, and it's making the rounds with a number of different people doing their own versions on TikTok. And it's got millions and millions of plays on Spotify. So I was very happy to hear that news. It's something that's just sort of recently spun out of control over the past few months. And I was very, very glad to hear that. And the recognition that it brings to an artist who's been making a lot of great music over the years. And very happy for Julie, and I just thought it'd be fun to highlight this on. It's also released on Sappy Records, which was their own sort of Rick and Julie's own record label back in the early '90s, and her debut 7-inch single, "Broken Girl." It's called "Dog Love Part 2." Anyhow, happy to have a copy of that, and just thought I would highlight that and go out on a Canadian note. And congrats to Julie Doiron for all the recent success. Anyhow, that just about wraps it up. This might have been a little long. I hope it wasn't too crazy, but I hope you enjoyed some of those records that were made by very, very talented women that are maybe a little bit off the beaten path, and maybe didn't get recognized during their day. And some of them have eventually gone on to get recognition over the years, which is only a positive thing. So I hope you all have a very excellent International Women's Day. And like I said, hope you enjoyed the content. Please like or comment if you have any of those records, or if you're interested in any of those records, please leave me a comment. Or if there's anything you know about those that I might have missed, it would be great to hear from you. So anyhow, we'll see you next time, and hope you all stay well. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. All right, see you later.